Hey everyone, it's Peter Kerr from Daydream Nation, and look who's back to the channel, Todd Evans. How are you, Todd?
Hey, very good. Always
Good,
good to be here as usual.
good to have you back.
I feel like it's been a while.
It
Thanks.
has. No, great to have you back on the show. We're going to do something a little bit fun. Today's episode is about bands or artists that we don't like. Now, this is a very emotive type of show, Todd, and people have got to understand this is our opinions. Don't take it personally. I think it,
Right.
it goes back to what Clint Eastwood said in that movie, Magnum Force. Opinions are like everyone's got one. Well,
Right.
Todd and
Right.
I are going to go through
Well,
our artists that we should like, but we just don't.
I had some doubts about doing this show, and then I saw Scott Lake do the Prog Corner, and he did a show called Worst Bands Ever, and he talked about the band, and he sang some of the songs like "Up on Cripple Creek" and "Take a Load Off Fanny," and I was on the floor. I thought it was hilarious, and I thought, okay, well that's really funny. He called them country music by a bunch of Canadians. And so I was just like, I'm not going to pick the band, even though I'd like to, but I can't top Scott Lade's portrayal of them, so he can have that
Yeah,
one.
absolutely. But as I said, folks, just don't, this is just our opinion. Everyone's got opinions. And let's face it, YouTube is the land of opinions. So without further ado,
Right.
I will roll to you. What is your number one pick? And tell us why you do not like this artist or band.
Okay, well, my first pick is somebody I thought about this. I thought long and hard about picking this person. It's a she, somebody that is beloved, and she died in a very tragic way, and that's terrible. And I'm sure she was a lovely woman, but I got to talk about Janis Joplin. This is She's been bothering me since I was a small child. That I'm not gonna even start with this because I think she's got a worse song, but I won't start with it because I'll get a lot of hate and people should say, "Oh, well, you should have picked a good song." But I don't know what is up with. She's got an album called "I Got Them Old Cosmic Blues Again, Mama," and she's got a song called "Women is Losers." What is this? I can't talk thing. Is this like a I'm poor, so I can't speak English. I don't understand what this is. And I just think her voice is really irritating. And I try. And I think that her album Pearl is kind of good. I like the sound of the band on that album. I don't like the sound of the band of Big Brother and the Holding Company. I don't like that at all. But I I've got to go to the song Mercedes Benz. I know it's just supposed to be funny, and I know it's a cappella and everything, but I heard it used in a commercial once, and I just think it's so cringy. And I wanted to listen to it because I wanted to see if maybe she's saying something really profound and meaningful, or culturally significant. But it's so cringy I couldn't listen to it. I had to Google the lyrics, and spoiler, she's not saying anything really important or groundbreaking. So I'm sorry, everybody. I know everybody loves her. Like I said, it's terrible what happened to her, but and I know that everybody loved her who hung out with her, but I just can't stand Janis Joplin. I just can't.
Yeah, she's not a subtle singer. She's got a
No.
big voice, and it feels like you've been hit by a sledgehammer. So
Yeah.
she is a big voice.
But she's got this song called Cry Baby, and I'm sure that a lot of people really think that is a spectacular vocal performance. And if you
Mm,
like that kind of stuff, I'm sure it is. But I heard it used in a perfume commercial, and
mm.
I hadn't heard it in a very long time, and I didn't recognize it. And my wife and I just looked at each other and were like, "What the hell is that?" Um,
Yeah. Could
it's
you
just always my reaction.
could you imagine the mixing desk with the producer and her in the microphone? It'd be just like on 11 or 12, wouldn't it? It'd be going like that every single vocal.
Right, they probably had to keep changing microphones to come up with one
Yeah.
that worked well with her.
Yeah. Come on. Yeah. Big vocal. Big vocal. All right, folks. A band had one or two songs that showed promise right at the start, but to me, they became very corporate, and a lot of their songs were, in my view, marketing slogans, very cliched. Bon Jovi.
Ah,
Bon Jovi to me are like the McDonald's of music. So a lot of their songs are very tasty, but after you have the Big Mac and your fries and your Coke, you kind of forget about it. Those early albums, had promise like Runaway, In and Out of Love off the Bon Jovi 7800 Fahrenheit degree Fahrenheit. I think the thing
hmm
that gets me is there's a lot of cliches, and I think Bon Jovi wants to be like Bruce Springsteen, but he doesn't have the pathos. He doesn't have the songwriting skill to really pour his heart out. There's a bit of a disconnect, and there's something you'll find a lot of the artists that I pick that I don't like. There's an insincerity factor, and to me, I just don't feel the lyrics or he's actually pouring his heart. I'm thinking that he's putting stuff on paper that this will be a hit, but without
yeah,
giving himself as an artist of what it is. And
yeah.
I always go back to this song. I don't know where I'm going, only God knows where I've been. I'm a devil on the run, a six-gun lover, a candle in the wind. Yeah. Just so many cliches.
Yeah, yeah,
Me,
there
it's
really
like
are.
they became really corporate. Like that album they did in the mid '90s, which was a country and western album. I think it was called Lost Highway in 2007.
hmm
That really shows that they were just following the money
Yeah,
trail, what was ever
yeah.
popular. So,
And I have thought about I've tried with Bon Jovi, and the reason I try is because I don't think that his music sounds sincere. I don't think that he's a good lyricist. I don't think that he sells it well, but he's a good person. He's a quality human. He gives of his time and he gives money to all kinds of charity, and he's really got a good heart. And so I want to give him a chance, but every time I do, I feel like it's Charlie Brown in the football. I think I'm going to give Bon Jovi a chance, and then I'm on my back going, why do I keep doing that?
yeah. Look, he's a ruthless businessman.
He
Bon
is.
Jovi
Yeah.
is him, and those guys around him, they're not a band of brothers, they're salaried. And I
Yeah.
just think the way about him and Richie Sambora left a little bit of a bad taste. I
It
think
did.
I saw that documentary on Disney and the frustrations he was having with his vocals and all the good work. And he seemed like a very decent person. I think he evolved and matured, but I'm talking about the musicology side of it. And I just think that, I don't know, there's just an insincerity factor. I just don't think he's giving enough of his heart in
Well,
a
and he
lot of his
doesn't.
lyrics.
Yeah, he does, and it's okay to be a pop star and not be a good singer. That's fine. I mean,
Mm,
Jim Kerr can't sing at all, so it's like it's okay. You can still pull it off. But John Bon Jovi's not a very good singer, and I think people get the impression that he is,
yeah.
but
Well,
I don't think so.
there's a narrative out there, isn't there? There's a narrative, but
Yeah.
just a lot of their songs are just like sort of like marketing slogans. Never say goodbye. You give love a bad name. Blaze of glory. Always run away. Wanted dead or alive. Better roses. It's my life. It's my life. That's another one. To me, you look at the lyrics of that, and it's just it's like a Who's that guy that does those positivity courses?
Robbins, what's his name? His last name is Robbins.
Anthony Robbins.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like an Anthony Robbins sermon. So yeah, but like he's always aspired to be a Bruce Springsteen, and when he was playing the Traps in Jersey, he was on the kind of the periphery of Springsteen and a lot of those bands. But I just don't think enough of that songwriting craft, that depth, that insight is rubbed off. Anyway, Bon Jovi
Well,
for me.
I'll tell you one quick story about Bon Jovi because I think it's relevant. When I worked in the record store when I was in college, when I was in my 20s, we had this kid who used to come in and buy buttons from us. We had a case full of buttons. And when he became old enough to work, when he became 16, we hired him. And I remember it was right around the time Slippery When Wet came out. And I remember him saying, "This is album that is going to be huge, multi-platinum, and you can mark my words and all this stuff. And we made fun of him. Um, Not only was he right, he ended up being the vice president of Warner Brothers Records. His name is Mike Rittberg, and now he works for Big Machine in Nashville. So I remember thinking, damn it, he was right. Because I thought, there's no way this is a multi-platinum album.
Yeah, well, it's just
It's
my
not even as good as the first two.
yeah. Look, you can't deny they had the common touch, and people they did sort of it did resonate with a lot of people, or does
Yeah,
resonate with a lot of people, but just not me. Sorry.
yeah.
All right, what's your next pick?
Well, my next pick is somebody that you might think that I would like. He's a keyboardist, also a guitarist, but Steve Winwood. Um, Steve, uh-oh. I'm in trouble. So the thing about Steve Winwood, when I was in high school, I bought the album Arc of a Diver because I thought While You See a Chance was such a beautiful song. And I thought, okay, well, I'm going to buy this album sight unseen back before you could stream it or anything. It was my $7. It's a big deal to take a chance on an album. So I bought Arc of a Diver and I liked Will You See a Chance. I sort of liked the title track, Arc of a Diver, but then I was just like, this album just falls off at the end. And I was just like, I don't know what it is about this album. I keep trying to like it. I want to like it, but I just don't. And I didn't like Traffic at the time. I have tried to like Traffic as an adult and still can't make it work. Um, but then I don't know, a long time later, like 4 years later, comes Back in the High Life again, and it's got this whole, and this is my problem with him from here on, is it's got this whole R&B light kind of thing, which feels fake to me. It just feels fake. It's like the title track, Back in the High Life Again, is okay. I sort of like the chord progressions in the synth. But that great keyboard solo that you get in While You See a Chance, that synth solo, which is him playing, and it's so good. He hardly ever does that anymore. And you have to, for that album Back in the High Life, you have to get to like the fifth song before you even get him playing something. And uh, anyway, then this is where I think it really goes off the rails. Then you get Roll With It. So now the cover isn't even artistic. It's just a big picture of his face, and it just says Winwood. And Roll With It is just this really generic. It's sort of a a barroom rocker kind of a thing, but it doesn't feel real. And that album too is just a lot of kind of fake R&B. It's got a Phil Collins sort of drum sound, like all the gimmicky things about the Phil Collins drum sound, but none of the good things. And I just, I mean, there's no keyboard solo on that album until you get to the last song. All the keyboards in that album don't sound like he played them. They're just these little like synthy, tinkly like flourishes. They don't really sound like, okay, this is the album by the guy who played keyboards in Traffic. They don't sound like that. And but that was a lot of artists were doing that faux R&B kind of drum machine, Patrick Leonard, Michael Omartian kind of sound. And I like that sound depending on who the artist is. I think that really works for Madonna. I think it really works for Peter Cetera. But for somebody like Steve Winwood, I don't know where he got this R&B cred, but it just feels fake to me. He made a bunch of records later that were not a bunch, really only like three. And they're better because they're less gimmicky. And then eventually his last album in 2008 is an Americana album, and that's pretty good. I listened to that this morning. I was tapping my toe to that one. But I just feel like Steve Winwood was phoning it in. If you look at like the Wikipedia page for Back in the High Life Again and Roll With It, it's like looking at a 2025 album. It's just there's a million people on it, and it's just there's just something about it that it just feels not real to me. So I'm sorry, that's going to make some people mad, but
Yeah, I don't mind Arc of a Diver, but I think a lot of his 80s work would have been quite comfortable on Patrick Bateman's Walkman in American Psycho.
Well, you know
Um,
what's funny is that we used to think, first of all, Michelob used Genesis. They used that they would for Tonight Tonight Tonight, and
mm,
Michelob sponsored the Genesis tour.
mm.
And when they used to play the video for Tonight Tonight Tonight, my friends, my one of my friends that I always go into his house to watch MTV, he drank Michelob, and we used to put up the Michelob bottle and spin it like in front of the TV screen whenever Tonight Tonight would come on. Then you've got Steve Winwood, also sponsored by Michelob, and there is a song. First of all, his album is called Back in the High Life Again, and then there's a song on Roll With It called Don't You Know What the Night Can Do, and it's just like tonight, 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 and it's just like, did he write that song about the beer? I mean, it was instantly in a beer commercial. I mean, even like
Yeah,
right when the single came out, and we used to just relentlessly make fun of him for, it's like, did, did he write that for the commercial?
yeah.
It's
There was
like,
a,
that's
there was
probably unfair, but
there was a lot of 80s rock, or that sort of middle of the road rock that was very sort of aspirational, and they'd wear these flashy suits, and it'd be the sort of music that you'd hear in a Manhattan stockbroker's cocktail party. Patrick
yeah,
Bateman, all those sort of guys, they would groove on this. It's a little bit hollow, it's a little bit corporate, and this is not the Stevie Winwood that I like that had that
right.
R&B. He was like a prodigy. He was like this 16-year-old. Correct
Well,
me if
that's
I'm
the
wrong.
thing. It felt
Yeah,
real. I mean, even
yeah,
though I don't really care for Traffic that much, I don't dislike them. I've just never been able to get into them. But when he was
absolutely.
younger, it felt real. And when he
Yeah,
got into the 80s, it felt forced.
absolutely.
Like
It
he
was.
would have
It's a
been better off without that cast of hundreds that were helping
yeah,
him.
and as fake as those fake sax lines, they didn't even have real brass. It sounded like they had these fake synth lines. Fake
Yeah.
horns. Higher Life or whatever that song is. To me, that's a little bit bland, and it's middle of the road. It's all aspirational music because you look at the video clip and go, "Oh, that's the life that I want to be." Those
Right.
folks in the Midwest, and
Well, that's very 80s, isn't
being very
it?
sophisticated, aspiring to something a little bit better. So yeah, a little bit plastic, but I'll
Yeah.
tip my hat. There were so many of these middle-age artists that had a resurrection in the 80s, and I don't think you could do that. I don't think a 45-year-old pop artist could make it in today, could they, in 2025? But in the 80s, Tina Turner,
Yeah.
Stevie Winwood, Phil Collins. I don't know how old he was, but he seemed to be aging. But
Yeah, he was
these
about
middle
there. Yeah,
age,
he was a little
these,
younger, but yeah.
but
I was going to say that I was just doing a show. I just did a show on my channel about the Moody Blues. And I read a quote from John Lodge where he was saying that his favorite time from that band was the 80s because he was like, I was 45 years old and living the life of a rock star. But to me, I don't feel like that's, I mean, I listen to prog bands and like classic alternative bands. I think 45 is young. So, but
yeah,
back then that was unusual, but and
absolutely.
became normal.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the 80s was the golden age of the middle age rocker or
Yeah.
pop artist and being able to make it. Well, speaking of bands that had a career that went on for a considerable period of time, this is a sacred cow, and this could be a watershed for Rock Daydream Nation as the most controversial moment.
I'll defend you.
Well, I shared this view on the Contrarians, and it actually caused Grant Arthur to have a seizure on the show, and he did kick me off
He's
temporarily.
he's he's better now, I checked.
Yeah, he is. He's still surviving, and I believe his channel's doing okay. But no, seriously, this was a watershed moment, and there were a few folk out there that they came out of the woodwork and said, "I can't argue with you, Peter." So on that basis, I'm going to bring up Beach Boys. They're a sacred cow. It's the vocals that have kind of irritated me a little bit because they sound so earnest and they're very barbershop quartet sounding. The thing
Yeah.
that gets me is there's this reverence to them that they are in the pantheon of pop music, and they wrote a few good tunes, but they never played on their albums. The Wrecking Crew has never had the recognition, which that bugs me. You had the great Hal Blaine on drums. You had the great Carol Kaye on bass,
Hmm.
Glenn Campbell on guitar. Never get recognized. You look at the albums, especially those early albums. Even I'm not even sure today it's been corrected, and it's the Beach Boys.
Yeah.
And then you have this whole religious zeal, reverence for Brian Wilson, who just passed. Very sad. He wrote a good tune or two. God Only Knows. I can't deny it. I tip my hat. That's a beautiful song.
Yeah.
It warms my heart, and there are a few others. But you know, he had a nervous breakdown, and to me, I think musically he had great potential, but may have not been realised. And this whole narrative about Brian Wilson as being a genius is a little bit overstated. And
Well,
he's been in and out of the band. And, I think there have been moments with the Beach Boys during the 70s. They had flashes of greatness, but no band, there's a lot of the material I just don't like. Like Pet Sounds, I think is a bit overpraised.
I do too.
I
I do
think
too.
25% of it I really dig, and 75% of it I think is a little bit dull. And it's really funny that Paul McCartney sort of says, I think he was, I love the bass playing on that album. Well, you need to tip your hat at Carol Kaye,
Right.
because I tell you, those Beach Boys weren't playing the bass, Paul. Smile, again, there are bits and pieces of that album, the unfinished Beach Boys album, that had great potential. It's unrealized. And like when we look at the later part of their career, no band, not even the Beatles, if they were still around in the 80s and 90s, would put something as atrocious as Kokomo. And
No.
no band would be within cooey of John Stamos from Full House. How,
Right.
how, how he's in the fold, I just don't know. To me,
And
it
they would have
became,
albums like that self-titled one where I think it's the self-titled one that says Beach Boys really big, that
yeah,
people will kind of trip over themselves to try to convince you that it's a decent album, and I
yeah.
don't think it is.
Yeah, but
I don't
to
think it
me,
is.
it's just the harmonies. I know that they're really tight, but it's just the tonality to me. It just sounds so earnest and serious, and I don't know. I just don't like the sonics of this band, and I just think a lot of the praise has been overstated. And I think with Brian Wilson and the genius, it reminds me of the character in Being There, Peter Sellers, Chansey, where people were around him and they listened to him and they go, oh, that guy's a genius. When in
Yeah.
reality, kind of maybe not.
Well, you know, first of all, I want to say that what happened to him with his doctor taking advantage of him, that's tragic. Uh, and the fact that he was able to have a late career at all, I think is I think that's pretty spectacular. I would never have expected that to happen. And after what he went through, I think he kind of deserved that. But I've never thought that material was very good. I've never thought that 80s and 90s or late 80s or early 90s, whenever that was, I've always felt that it sounded a little bit tentative and that he was a little bit, underconfident. And I've seen performances of him that my friends would go to, and I've seen videos from those shows, and they were talking about how wonderful it was. I have been told that Brian Wilson is a genius all my life. I mean, all my adult life, because I was
It's
born in 1964. So I've been hearing that my whole life. And I think maybe, maybe, but I'm not 100% convinced.
Yeah, but it's a narrative. It's a sacred cow. Every critic says he's a genius, and we're going to get rocks thrown at us
We are.
for sort of saying maybe not. But look, it's
Yeah.
Brian Wilson is part of it. There's so many fractured. I think Dennis Wilson. There's
I'd be more inclined to
he
say that he was a genius first.
well, he had potential. But look, I'm looking at the Beach Boys. Like, they had fun surf music at the start, but to me, it's sort of, it's nice, it's twee, and then you had that the psychedelic period, or the Pet Sounds period.
Yeah.
But I just look at the sum of the whole. I just don't groove on this band, and I've
Yeah.
tried.
I
and
don't
I've
either.
listened to
And
many
they
albums.
made, yeah, they made an album that was just them talking. I mean, I just think that's kind of bold. Even the Monkees didn't do that. I saw a joke on social media where somebody said something along the lines of the three things that Beach Boys songs are about. And the first one was, I have a really nice car. The second one was, I like pretty girls. And the third one was, you should try surfing. It's really fun. And I thought that was funny.
Look, there's a lot of myth making, and yeah, I've just got to be factual. To me, to my ears, I just don't groove on them. It is what it
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
All right, over to you before I get out in more trouble.
Well, I'll the the hate comments will stop maybe when I mention my third one because my third one is just a terrible band. They're absolutely awful, and they're not like with Janis Joplin and Steve Winwood. These are people that I really wanted to like and really have tried for many years to like. This guy just sucks, and I'm going to talk about George Thorogood and the Destroyers. Oh my goodness! I mean. It's kind of low. It's kind of low hanging fruit. I know. And I'm going to say right off the bat that I don't like this barroom blues rock. And you're going to see this come up with a couple of my honorable mentions. But man, the blues, when it's done right, can really just knock your socks off. But this isn't it. This funny, I'm a terrible person, I'm a mean drunk act that George Thorogood does just doesn't work for me. But bad to the bone, I was just like, I mean, that's just too easy. When I was a kid, I would be just like, well, you're bad, all right. I mean, this song literally starts with da 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 da. I mean, if you're listening to a 75-year-old blues player play that, then okay, well that's the that's where the blues started, but that's just lazy. It's just a tired riff and one bourbon, one scotch, one beer. I don't think that abusing alcohol is funny, so that doesn't amuse me. And then the worst one has got to be Move It On Over, which is basically should have just been called I'm a Terrible Person. Um, Move over, the mean old dog, the big bag dog is moving in. She changed the locks, but I'm coming in anyway. Move it on over. I'm a mean drunk abuser. Get out of my way. I just I don't get this at all. I don't get how he stretched that out between like over 4 or 5 albums. How did he do it? In the 80s, how did he do it? I
Did,
don't get it.
did they sell a few units in America in the 80s?
Yeah.
Were they big?
You probably are wondering why I'm what I'm going off about, but yes, they did.
Yeah, I actually saw him about 4 weeks ago supporting ZZ Top, and I'll be honest,
Really?
he wasn't too bad. To
He's
me,
probably a very good live performer, but he's
yeah,
never going to convince me
live.
to want to go
Would I
see
buy?
him.
Would I buy an album? I've got one album in there. Do I play it? No. Would I buy a George Thorogood album? No. He is a good performer, and it's just basically three note barroom blues,
Yeah.
and he knows how to entertain the audience. His songs aren't super great, but he's entertaining, and a lot of it. He's got a sax player, and the style of the playing is there's a little bit of blues there, but a lot of it was kind of that old time classic rock and rolls. I felt like he'd be sort of attuned to playing in Arnold's and Happy Days, with the sax
Right.
and that sort of
Well, I would have preferred
yeah,
that
yeah. A lot of it
over
was rockabilly, and
get
I
drunk with
didn't
me
mind
and
it. I didn't
abuse
mind it.
people.
And to me, he was more energetic than ZZ Top. They were just it was just
Yeah.
basically it was a bit disappointing. Billy Gibbons, they didn't move, but George at least moved and engaged with the audience. But I got sick of that bad to the bone, like a Terminator 2. Arnold Schwarzenegger would come
Right.
in and, bad to the bone. It was like a cliche in all the
It
action
is.
scenes.
It's such a cliche, and I'm pretty sure it was used a whole bunch of times in a whole bunch of different things.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh,
It's
well,
kind of like, oh yeah, which I should have put yellow as a honorable mention, but I forgot.
does anyone know a Yellow song beyond Oh Yeah? No. Oh Yeah,
God, I
no.
hate that
No,
song.
they don't. They should say no. They should call the song No, not Oh Yeah. But
The first time I ever heard that song was in the Michael J. Fox movie, The Secret to My
Secret of My
Success.
Success, yes.
Yeah, and it came on in the movie, and I looked at my friend next to me and I said, "What the hell is that?" And it was like, "Oh, it's Yellow. They're this really cool experimental band." And I was like, "This is awful."
Yeah, it's like Kraftwerk.
I will defend that to my death. That
Yeah, it's like a
Yellow is awful.
lightweight version of Kraftwerk.
Sorry for that tangent.
No, that's okay. That's okay. Um, ever thought, ever felt like you're not getting into a band and everyone else is getting into it, and you feel like that you're, the party's inside the house and you're outside and you can't get inside? That's the way I feel with Pearl Jam. um,
Yeah.
Everyone sort of loves it. One of my best friends loves them. He's even bought me a ticket to go to their shows, and I just don't get it. To me, Eddie Vedder is the more beige version of grunge and the more acceptable corporate, straight down middle of the road. And there is so much earnestness, there's so much seriousness. To me, this band Killjoy, and I saw them live in 2006, and this was the Pearl Jam self-titled album, The Advocado, Half Advocado. I'll put the
Mhm.
screenshot up. And I just sat there, and there was just basically no stagecraft. It was just dim lights, them playing.
Mhm.
And to me, there was no charisma, there was no edge. And a lot of everyone around me, I felt like I was in the eye of the storm, was enjoying and just raising their fists in the air. And I was like this. If it was at a Broadway show, I would have had the notes and counting the songs until the end. I just couldn't wait to get out of there. It just all blended in, and it's just all very low wattage. Now, I don't mind a live off 10. I know there were a couple of songs off 10 had great potential, but then you got into Versus and Vitalogy and No Code, and they sort of
Well,
blur into
let me
everything.
let me ask you this. Do you feel like they got worse and worse with every album? My friends and I used to joke. Well, I say my friends and I, it was me that used to joke about this because everybody liked Pearl Jam but me. But I used to say that eventually, like 10 years from now, the Pearl Jam is just going to be Eddie Vedder going, because that's where it feels like it's heading.
Yeah, I don't like his vocals. I
Yeah,
think
I don't
that
either.
sort of stems to, it's sort of like marbles in the mouth. It's that sort of that lower baritone marble in the mouth type of diction. I've never
Yeah.
liked it. I don't. I think there's a pretentiousness about them that they sort of, there's more meaning than it actually is. I'm going to get a
Yeah.
lot of
Well,
hate.
I want to say first off that normally I like earnest artists. Some of my favorite artists are very, very earnest. I will defend uh, U2 until the end of time. I like that. A lot of people don't, but I do. And Eddie Vedder's a really good person. But I don't think Pearl Jam's music is important. I don't think it's inspiring. And I don't think it comes across. I don't, it's a lot like John Bon Jovi. He's a better person than he is an artist.
Yeah, but
So I agree with this one.
there's no danger. There's no
Yeah.
edge. And
Yeah. And you know what? I feel like,
I could handle earnestness if there's a bit of edge. And there's
yeah.
no edge. There's no danger to it. You can sort of listen to the song and you know where it's going. And
Hmm.
to me, when I listen to an artist, if I listen to somebody like Tom York in Radiohead, you listen to the start of the song, I don't know where it's going. And they'll do your
Yeah.
left turn and a right turn, rush, left turn, right
Yeah.
turn. Pearl Jam, you hear the first verse of the chorus, I know where it's going.
Yeah.
Every choice they make is not the choice that I wanted to hear.
Right.
Sorry, I'm
That
stealing that,
happens a
Jamie.
lot. And those are the kind of people, I mean, the kind of artists that I really love are the ones that surprise you to where when you're listening to something for the first time and it goes somewhere that you don't expect it and you think, "Oh, well, wow, that's really
Mm,
great." People that are super predictable like that, it depends on the genre. Sometimes if it's a kind of music that I really like, I'm okay with that. But if it's something that I don't know very well, whenever I hear that kind of non-innovation, I
mm.
I feel the same way. And I feel this way about, I'm gonna go on another tangent. I feel like this way about another band where I'm really gonna lose some street cred for saying this, but I feel this way about Tool. I feel like there's no tunes. It's not. I could mention uh, 50 bands that are heavier and are more interesting than Tool. So why they sell out stadiums, I have no idea.
Yeah,
But I feel that way about Pearl Jam and Tool, a very
yeah,
similar way.
yeah. No, I just feel like Pearl Jam. There's a lot of hot air. There's a lot of build up, but there's no payoff to me. I just don't get it. And as I
Yeah.
said, like for a considerable period of time, I felt like I was like I was excluded, and I wasn't in
Uh-huh.
the party, and I was on the outside, and I tried to get in. I was at the party, and I felt like, you ever been to a party and you don't know any guests, and you pretend
Right.
to talk to yourself,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
look at your mobile phone, and just try to pretend.
Right.
I felt like I had no one. I was there by
Right.
myself. You know.
You want me to go through my honorable mentions?
Oh, we're at honourable mention stage. Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
I've
yes.
done three and
Please.
you've done three and
I haven't done three. I'll look up. Yeah, go for it. Yes, please.
no, no, go ahead. Do you have one more to do?
No, no, no. You go, go, go.
Okay. So what I was going to say was, and I almost didn't pick this one because I learned something today that really makes me kind of feel like a dope. But I have always disliked canned heat. And again, it's it's good for what it is, but it's not very interesting blues rock to me. But I always thought that guy that sang "Going Up the Country," I always thought that was the big guy. I thought that was Bob Hite, the bear. I thought that's who that was, but it's not. It's this little scrawny guy named Alan Wilson, who I think died even younger than Bob Hite did. And he sings two songs, and he sings both of their hits. So I did not know that. And so when I listened to the rest of it, I was like, okay, well, this isn't bad. I thought that guy that with the high voice sang all the Canned Heat songs really makes me feel kind of stupid. But
Well, aren't you
anyway,
lucky that their audience is probably dead or dying and can't watch the
they're still
show?
going. There's still
Oh,
a
okay.
Canned Heat with like a bunch of people in it that are not them.
Yeah.
But they and the way this guy died, the way Bob Hite died, he somebody in the audience handed him heroin at a show, like in the middle of the show, like where they were going to take like an intermission, and he went unconscious. The roadies tried to give him a large dose of cocaine to revive him, and he got worse. So they drove him to a bandmate's house where he died. And it was just like, you numbskulls, take him to a hospital. Holy cow. I guess they
I didn't
thought they
know
were
that.
going to get him in trouble. But everything about that band I've never understood. And they've had a super long career. And I, I don't know why. It reminds me of there's a band that I really love called The Doors. I'm sure everybody knows who that is. Where when they got to the LA Woman album, half of it was just really lazy blues rock. And that's what I feel like Canned Heat is like all the way through. But
Absolutely. Oh well. I don't mind them. What I've heard, but yeah, we all have different views. Phil Collins. Oh my God, that guy had so much.
you know how big a Phil Collins fan I am, aren't you?
I know
Don't you?
we're gonna. This is gonna. It could
No,
be
I
a.
have something to say that sort of goes along those lines, but
Yeah.
carry
No,
on.
I'm talking about solo. In the Air Tonight, heartfelt, deservedly. That's a masterpiece song, and even sonically, very influential. I mean,
Hmm.
thank you for the gated drums in the '80s, Phil Collins. And
Yeah.
but I just got. He was me. He was. It was like Phil Collins was everywhere in the '80s. He was mugging the airways. He was. I mean, in the charity concerts like Live Aid, not only he did London, he got on the Concorde and went to Philadelphia. He was everywhere. But to me, there's an insincerity factor. I mean, this guy broke up with his missus and served divorce papers by fax. Come on. And on one
Well,
hand, he's
I,
back.
I
Go on.
I shouldn't do this because I shouldn't be correcting you, but that actually didn't that's actually exaggerated, but
Hey, it makes a
that's
good
okay.
story anyway. It's my It's my
It is a good
narrative.
story.
It's my narrative, and I'm going to keep it in there.
Right.
All right.
Right.
Look,
Well,
Another Day in Paradise. One More Night. I find whiny. this fake R&B. Let's do a duet with somebody who's got a bit of cred, like Phil Bailey, Easy Love, groovy kind of love. Two Hearts. I love that faux Motown sound, you know, the overwrought Against All Odds. To me, Phil Collins, I've never liked you other than In the Air Tonight, and the 80s, he was just everywhere. So I'm sorry, but Phil Collins for me.
Well, I'm gonna give you something on this. I'm a pretty big Phil Collins fan. I like him a lot. And one thing that I will give you is that by the time he got to No Jacket Required, he was on a tight schedule, and he's admitted this. And I feel like on every album from the No Jacket Required, which is his third solo album, on until the end of his solo career, feels like he was in a time crunch. It feels like there are songs on those albums like Inside Out and there especially on some of the later albums where he's got a whole album called Both Sides where he was talking in the press about how much he liked the Blue Nile, and he's got a whole album where he rips off the Blue Nile for like a whole album. So I have my issues with Phil Collins' solo career. I like it. I'm a fan. I've been to see him a couple of times, but I feel like he treated some of those solo albums like they were product, and I will give you that. There are times when that's what it feels like.
And he also screwed up Led Zeppelin at Live Aid, but it wasn't
He
his
he
fault.
he, he did not, but that's another show.
Yeah, my narrative. It may not be correct, but it's
Right.
my narrative. Don't you like it when people say it's my truth?
Right.
They can lie and say something completely outrageously wrong, but it's my truth. That's the
Right.
new way of framing it. Lying. It's like George Costanza in Seinfeld. If you believe it's true, it must be true.
Well, it's very interesting. I watched and I wish I could remember the name of the guy's channel. I watched a guy do a show on this where he says the Led Zeppelin reunion failing was not Phil Collins' fault. And there's a lot of stuff I didn't know. Like Phil Collins didn't know that Tony Thompson was also asked. And Tony Thompson was angry that Phil was there. So he sort of sabotaged him. And Phil got there. Phil did it as a favor to Robert Plant. And then what Phil didn't realize was that Robert Plant in Led Zeppelin, Phil has this thing. He's like, Robert Plant on his own, great bloke. Robert Plant and Led Zeppelin, a whole other story. So Phil got there and he was just like, "This is a disaster." And if I could get up from this, it's in his book, Not Dead Yet. If I could get up from this stool and walk off the stage without ruining my career, he says I would have done it. So
Yeah,
he had his eyes locked on Tony Thompson, and Tony Thompson was not doing anything to help him. So it's convoluted. Did he
yeah,
play some things wrong? Yes, but it's
absolutely.
it's complicated.
Yeah, as I said, I was just being cheeky. I was just a little bit of humor there, guys. I didn't mean it. But look, in general, I just don't like his 80s material other than In the Air Tonight, which I think is an absolute stone
He
cold
phoned some things in for
masterpiece.
sure.
And I think it was a case that he was just everywhere. He was like Phil
Yeah.
Collins in inverted commas everywhere. And yeah, that's it. So over to you. Next choice.
Well, one of the bands that I was almost going to not say because I've got some reservations about it, but it kind of goes along with the canned heat thing, and that's CCR, Creedence Clearwater Revival. And I'll tell you why I almost didn't mention him because two reasons. For one, I like the way the records are produced. They sound really clean. They're pleasurable to listen to. I don't like the vocals at all, but the records sound good, and I think the song "Fortunate Son" is relevant and kind of important to the times. So those are the two things I like about CCR. The things I don't like about CCR is everything else.
Well done. I agree with you. I don't like him, and I can't explain it. I like Southern rock. Like for example,
Yeah.
I love Tony Joe White.
Hmm.
I love his vocals, and he's got that big Southern
Yeah.
drawl. So
Yeah.
theoretically, I should like the vocals of Clinton's Clearwater Revival, but I don't.
It,
So
it's
sometimes you just can't explain it.
it's not the style overall, it's just the guy. It's just John Fogerty. I don't like the way he sings. I
Yeah,
think that
absolutely.
a couple of his solo albums are even better recorded than the CCR albums, and that Center Field album sounds
Mm,
fantastic. I don't like it, it sounds great.
yeah.
But
So I think that just goes into the category we can't explain, but we just don't like.
right,
This
right.
one I can explain because I just don't like the person. And this is Mick Hucknall from Simply Red.
Oh,
To me, those albums, it goes into aspirational high life. Look at me, I'm Mick Hucknall. I've made love to 10,000 women in one day. I
when I was in college, I hated Simply Red so much.
It's just smug. There's a
Yeah,
smugness. If you don't like, I mean, why did God gift this guy with such great vocals and put it in a person that's not basically a very nice person? I just don't get
yeah,
it.
yeah,
Um, Personality aside, I just think a lot of their music was very fake white plastic soul,
yeah,
devoid of sincerity and heartfeltness. I just
yeah,
don't get the feel that he's feeling the lyrics. I think that he's just going through the motions, and there was a lot of fake plastic soul in the
yeah.
80s, and this is one of them. And this would be on Patrick Bateman's uh, Walkman list, I would imagine. Do you think Patrick would be grooving to Simply Red
Yeah, probably,
when he's got the
probably.
axe and ready to?
And I do want to say that there's a lot of that fake soul that I really like. I mean, Daryl Hall, he's great,
He's
but
not fake.
and I like
That's
it
not.
when
That's not
somebody
fake though. That's
that's
not
kind of
fake.
real, right? But I
Yeah.
mean, there's a lot of that stuff that happened in the '80s that I think is good, but Simply Red isn't it. I like their song "You Got It." I think that's a really pretty song, but I think that might be a cover.
Yeah. But and he's like, sometimes we should know a lot about our rock stars because I think in the 80s, through the magazines and through the media, we got to know a lot of who they actually were and stories. And, there are some people that you read about are not particularly nice, and I can forgive it and still like the music, but just the
Yeah,
press with Mick is so bad. And
yeah,
it's actually
it really
worse
is.
when you look at photos of him and he had a gold tooth inserted,
Yeah,
which to me it's like a finger up in the air. And look at me, I'm a millionaire.
right.
I'm a millionaire rock star.
Yeah, I just thought, I mean, the first that we ever heard of him in the States was Holding Back the Years. And I was just like, what is this, Carly Simon? This is like a bad Carly Simon song. I didn't even know it was a guy. I mean, I just, I couldn't stand it. I was just like, this is just completely fake. I don't know why people are going crazy over this because it just seems awful to me.
And to think that the small faces or the faces actually, they couldn't get Rod Stewart, they got Mick. Did you know that?
I didn't
Look,
know that.
look it up. Look it up. They did a
Wow.
couple of. That's just whack. How
Yeah,
they
why
did
would you
that.
sign up to be in a band with that guy?
Yeah, unbelievable. Anyway, Mick Hucknall. Yeah. Anyway, Mick.
Well, I've got another one, and this one's really different. So I know I've sort of been between George Thorogood and Canned Heat and CCR. I've sort of been on the same trail. This is a guy in a band that I should like, a lot of my friends like, and I want to like because I think he's a really interesting guy. The Fall. Marky Smith seems like the coolest guy, and he kept doing that. I mean, he was basically on his deathbed, and he kept doing shows. I mean, he would do them from sitting in a chair. And I just thought, I should think he's cool. But every time I listen to a song by The Fall, I'm just like, oh my God, it's so bad. I mean, you know how like our parents used to say, that sounds like noise. But when I listen to The Fall, that's what I think. I think that's just a bunch of noise. There's no tunes. The band can't play. I mean, it's kind of like, you know how the Sex Pistols really couldn't play, but it was still something really interesting and cool. The Fall just can't play, and it just sounds like a bunch of people who can't play. So
Yeah,
I've
and there
never
were
understood that.
absolutely, and there were 300 people in the band, and they
Right?
couldn't play. You think you bloody well get it right. 300 people. Surely you can get a lineup that sticks.
Yeah. There was a really funny comic strip about 10 years ago that was this girl who was like playing the clarinet or something like that. And he's like, "Hey, it's me, it's Marky Smith. You want to be in the fall?" And she was like, "Sure." And then she like played one song and he was like, "Okay, your time is up."
Absolutely. Honorable mentions. This is an honorable mention of a particular artist, but not his solo work, his cameo work. And I'm talking about Stevie Wonder's harmonica. I can't stand it where Stevie Wonder comes on a song and he does these squeaky little harmonica solos. It spoils the song. Now, I'm talking about that song, Must Be an Angel with Eurythmics. And when he comes on with that squeaky harmonica, oh my God, I have to turn the radio off. You're laughing because you know. Chaka Khan,
Yeah.
there you go again. He comes on, he sabotages the song. So this one is for you, Stevie. The Stevie Wonder's harmonica. I can't stand it. It's squeaky. You need to put it in the box and put it in the cupboard and lock it up.
Well, Stevie Wonder's a great artist and a
Love
lot of
Stevie,
really cool albums.
but he
But
needs
by the
to.
time he got to the 80s,
Mm.
he was phoning it in. That I just called to say I love you is phoned in. And so
What's
I hate to use
worse?
the
What's
cliche
worse,
term,
his harmonica or that song?
that song is worse.
Yeah.
But
Do
yeah,
you
the Eurythmics song does not need that.
do you agree
Absolutely.
that really
I
that
do.
it's squeaky? It's just so. You didn't expect that, did you?
No, I didn't. A
This one's
very
for you.
specific element of an artist.
Yeah. Todd, tell us about your new channel.
My new channel is called Recurrent with Todd Evans, and I called it that because recurrent is what we used to call the songs that we would play on college radio that would they wouldn't die. Like if you stopped playing, New Order Brotherhood, people would be like, "Oh, where'd it go?" So I thought of that as a way to talk about music that kind of sticks with you and doesn't and has staying power. And so that's why I called it that. And but I'm going to talk about some other things. The next show I'm going to do is about formats, and I'm going to say some some things about vinyl that I think some people are not going to expect me to say. So I'm looking forward to doing that, and we'll have some guests along the way. Right now it's just me, but we'll have some
Absolutely.
guests in the
Well,
future.
I'll put the link down there, and
Okay, thank you.
yeah, looking forward to seeing what else is going to be on your show. But folks, look, this is a bit of fun. As I said, it's our opinions. Don't take it too seriously. Life goes on. Have a deep breath, everyone. Come on, inhale, exhale.
Okay.
It's it's just an opinion. Um, but please share your comments anyway. We'll read it, good, bad, or indifferent. Please like and subscribe to Rock Daydream Nation. And I'm sure I'm going to have Todd back on the show in
Yeah, hopefully.
2025,
Yeah,
stirring more shit up.
right.
All the best and cheers. See ya.
See you guys.